Today's daf is daf Kuf Yud Zayin. We have the 2 blocks left to the Masechta. We're going to begin by the Mishnah on daf Kuf Tazayin Omen based. Hagezel Sadam Echaveda. If a person steals a field from another person, when a talu masikin, and thugs take the field from the robber. So, guy stole it from party A, and now masikin, thugs, robbers came and they stole from another robber, from this robber. So the halacha is dependent upon the circumstances as follows. In Makas Medina, if it's a regional disaster, which the thugs seize all the property in the regions, so the robber says to the owner of the field, that which is yours is before you. In other words, it is your prerogative to try to reclaim from the thugs, which means that the robber, no compensation is required since the thugs would have seized the property in any event. So he says, yes, I stole from you, but it's a Makas Medina, and they would have been stolen anyway.
So what is it giving him? Yet respect to him. So what? In other words, additional Rabbi means use your field.
Knock yourself out with the thugs, Go third world country style. If the thugs took the field only due to the robber, in other words, without the robber, the thugs wouldn't have taken it. The robber is obligated to provide the owner with a different field. So simple. Then, simple story. The robber steals from party A, and then Masikin come and they stole from the robber. So if it's a Makas Medina, the robber says he would have anyways gotten messed over. And if it's a Makas Gazlan, so then he has to pay. He's obligated to provide the owner with a different field. He says, masikin, the person who uses the term masikin, loy mishtamish, it's not a mistake. Matsikin, and also the one who uses we have the lashon of masikin, but there's also a term of matsikin, also loy mishtamish. More expensive. Matsikin loy mishtamish. The one who uses the term matsikin does not make a mistake. Ksiv. There's a passage that says, "B'motzik in the siege and the distress," so basically, masik and matzikin are individuals who cause distress to others. Uman detane masikin, and the one who teaches the term masikin also lo mishtamish does not make a mistake. Ksiv yonish hatzelo shall the locust consume. V'tageminon. And the standard Aramaic translation is Yachsinini Sakoi shall the locust consume. So Masikin are those who consume the property of others. Now, the Mishnah says,
You call the Gazini in Masik. Ashema Arbesh Afugav.
Yeah. Now, the Mishnah says in Machmas Hagaz that if the thugs took the field due to the robbers, the robbers obligated to provide the owner with a different field. So the Fred, you want to issue me what are the circumstances of the case in the Mishnah? If we say that they seized only his land, the robber's land, and they did not seize all other lands in the region, so we already said this in the first case of the Mishnah. Makas Medinahi, if it's a regional disaster in which thugs seize all the property in the region, so the robber is not obligated to pay to compensate the owner of the field, which is mashma Eloi, and if it's not, then late. So what's the chiddush of the later case? We said, if it's Machmas HaGazlan, so then he's chayiv. So for the Gemara, if we're talking about that the thugs only take his, we don't take others, so that the Meisher already said that. But in Machmas Medina, which is Mashma, if it's not Machmas Medina, then he's asked to pay. Where it says, it's not really, the pashas you can answer simply is that it's just, it's the derech of the Mishnah, but the Gemara obviously wants to be medayik. So the Gemara says, we're talking about a case where the individual did not actually take control of the property before it was seized by the thugs, but rather showed the field to the thugs, and he was the one who facilitated the occupation of the field. Yishnach, different explanation, a different version of the answers as follows. What are we dealing with? We're a case where Goyim coursed someone, so Goyim coursed someone and told him to show them the land for them to seize, and he showed them that field belonged to another, along with his own field. And the thugs then seized the land that he showed them. The Gemara now says a story. So there was a certain man who showed piles of wheat belonging to the Reish Galusa to thugs to see them. sees them, Osla committed Rav Nachman, they came before Rav Nachman for a dentata, Chayv Rav Nachman, Nashlume, Rav Nachman, indeed, the man, the Chayv to pay the Rishkalusa for the stolen wheat. Yosef Rav Yosef Achuri, the Rav Yosef Barchio, Yosef Barhuna, Barchio committed Rav Nachman, so Amalei Rav Huna Barchio, Rav Nachman, Dina, Oy Kanasa. So he was asking, did you deem him Chayv to pay because that's the halacha, or was it a knas? In other words, he didn't steal, he just showed the family, he showed the thugs where which caused, so it was like a dinner tagarmi. Which the Gemara is going to speak about later. So he says, Dina or Knasa, is it a halacha or is it a fine? So later, Nachman said to him, Mastisi, this individual's chayev is written in the Mishnah. If we learn that if the thugs took the field due to the robber, he's obligated to provide the owner with a different field. And it was established, the Mishnah is referring to the case where the individual showed the field, the thugs who showed the field to the thugs who later took it. So in this case, the one who showed the Rishklusa's wheat piled to the thugs is obligated to pay for them. What's to the Nofak? After Nachman left, Rav Yosef, the Nefona Barchia, my nafkala minach. What difference does it make to you? A dina, an iknasa, if it's halach or it's a fine. Amarle, she said like this. Rav Barchia said to him, a dina, if it's the halacha, gamrina minei, then we can learn from it and apply to the ruling to other cases. But iknasa, if it's a fine, then like gamrina minei, we cannot learn from it. As is possible, the Rav Nachman had specified specific reasons to give a knas. The Gemara asks, "We know from where do we know that we did not learn a fine in one case to apply to other cases?" The Tanya we learned in Abraisa, but initially the Chacham would say, "I'm a tamav, I'm an asich," the one who renders another food tummy, which is making it unfit to consume, and one who pours another wine as a libation for Avodah Zarah, thereby rendering an item for which the deriving benefit is usher, are liable to pay the owner for the financial loss that caused despite the fact that the damage is not evident. Then they added to the list and they said, Afa Madamea. So too the one who is Madamea, who intermingles Truma, the portion of the produce is designated to the Kain, with another Zar's produce, which is rendering the Kedushitic food forbidden to non-Kainim. So it's chayiv to compensate the owner for the loss of the value of the produce. Why? Because we know fewer people are willing to buy it. The Gemara says, Chazru, it can be learned from here that it's only because the Chachamim added to the list that yes, the one who is medamea with others has to compensate him. But if they not, had they not added this to the list, then my time mentioned the Krasu must be because that's a knas, and from one knas to another knas, you can't learn. So the Gemara says late. That's not the reason. Mikara Savri, initially the Chacham maintained that we're concerned with to a large financial loss. In other words, the case of the one who renders another food tamei or pours the seminasich, so that's a hefset meruba. But the hefset meruba with a small financial loss. For example, let's say a person who mixes the truma, that they were not concerned. They were save Savri, and then they held that no, so that's good. Not mifashu. They were concerned with regard to a small loss as well, and they gave the knas. Furthermore, any is the so, but didn't the father Rav Avin teach? Rabbi says follows, but initially they would say that is chayiv to pay for it, and then they added and said also one who pours another wine is libation for Avodah Zarah is also chayiv to pay a fine for lost their cause, which is matter of chazru in dafke if chazru then chazru late. So the Gemara says, my time, the Gemara says, no. Let me, and the Gemara explains. Initially they held in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi, the Omer of Avin. The Omer of Avin says, if a person stood in the Rishus on Shabbos and shot an arrow from the beginning of an area measuring 4 amas to the end, measuring 4 amas, and the arrow tore another silk in the course of the travel through the air. Potter, the person is called Potter. Why? Because we know every akida needs to have anacha, and the halacha is the one performing is chayiv to receive the death penalty for violating Shabbos. One who performs a single act for which he is chayiv to receive the chayiv misa, and is also chayiv to pay the money, the halacha is kam lebe de rabmine. So since zarech shes mitzilas arbel say, so even those kodesh shirin bali chosei, but the fact is every akida needs to have hanacha. So there was this akida. By the time this akida had the hanacha, and it ripped the shirin, it was all one act happening together. So
on the way.
So why doesn't it have to pay for the shirin? Because we say kam lebe de rabmine. So similarly, a person who pours another's wine as a libation for Avodah Zarah, he incurs the death penalty, and therefore is potter from paying the wine. He says, from the time of lifting, the thief acquires the wine, and thereby is chayiv to pay. It's chayiv to pay money. So I actually have and he's not chayiv for the death penalty until he actually pours wine for libation. So once Chachamim concluded that the liabilities are not the bavas achas, they rule that one who pours another wine as Avodah Zarah is chayiv to reimburse him because it's not boin ke'echad. Exactly. The kiniya, let's say, here's this. So b'shas the hagabah, he's already kiniya, he stole it. B'shas the nisach, so it wasn't the demaisim. The Gemara returns now to the matter of one who showed another field to Ganov. The Yehuda happened to come to the town of Be'avyin, Oslak Amedadava, and he came in front of Rava. The Amalei said, "Full ma'aseh bali adaf." Did any legal incident come to you for judgment recently? Amalei stole some sugaim. Everyone in the chaver biyad the yadi v'chiyavtu. Una Bar Yehuda said to him, "Yeah, there was a case for Ayla Dinteda, Vayid whom goyim coursed him, and as a result, he showed him property belonged to another yid, and then the goyim seized it. He came to me for a Dinteda, and I deemed him chayiv to compensate the owner for the loss." So Rabbi said to Rabbi, reverse your decision in this case and return the money to its owners. The Tanya, we learned that Rabbi, the thugs, in the case of a yid whom goyim coursed, and as a result, he showed them property belonged to another, potter, he is potter from reimbursing the owner of the property. But if he actually took the property and gave it to the goyim by his own hand, he's chayiv to compensate him. Now, the Gemara says, Rabbi says, if he showed the goyim the property on his own violation, in other words, not through coercion, it's as though he actively took the property and gave it to the goyim by his own hand. And he's chayiv to compensate the owner. The Gemara now recounts a story who gave it to the goyim. There was a certain man, a goyim had coursed, and he showed him the wine of Mari, son of Pinchas, son of Chisda. The goyim said to him, carry the wine and bring it to us. So he's complying with the goyim. He carried and brought it with them. Also, they came as for a dentata to Ravashi, and Atrine, he exempted the man from compensating Mari for the wine. So the Chacham said to Ravashi, but didn't we learn in our Brisa? If he took the property and manually transferred it to the goyim, he's chayiv to compensate the owner. So Rashi said to them, that's the statement applies only in the case where the yid did not bring the goyim to the property at the outset. But if he brought the goyim to the property at the outset, then mikle kalye, it's as though he already burned it, as the goyim then had access to the property. Since the damage inflicted by the goyim was committed merely by showing the wine to the goyim, he is exempt from payment, even though he later actively carried the wine with his hands.
Mikle Kolel means that's what he's potter.
Mikle
Kolel pshat.
He already burnt it. So the goyim, which means that the goyim already had access to it. So, which means since the damage inflicted by a yid was committed just showing the wine to the goyim, he's potter from payment, even though he later actively carried the wine with his hands. So he asked the Shaila. Okay, so let's see the question. In the case where a anas said to a yid, pass me this bundle of grain, or this cluster of grapes, and the yid passed it to him. Chayiv is chayiv to pay the owner of the grain for the grain of the grapes. Right, because since what's the question? Since the anas was already present, it's mashma from the Bryce that even the person hands over another property to a third party is chayiv, despite the fact that the person already had access to it. So I'm asking again today over Naharo. Talking about a case where the Yid and the Anas were standing on two different sides of the river. So the Anas did not have access to the item when the Yid passed to him. The Kanami, you can also be precise in the explanation. It says pass, which is mashma that the Anas could not have reached it himself. That's where you're chayiv, yeah. So that's Shemamino. Okay, the Gemara now says another story. There was a certain fishing net over which two people were fighting. Hi Omer Didihu, hi Omer Didihu. This one said it's my fishing net. This one said it's my fishing net. One of them went and gave to an officer of the king. One of them went and gave it to the officer of the king. Rabbi said he is potter from paying. Why is he potter? Because he can say, when I gave it to the official, I gave him mine. And does he have the power to do so in the ownership of the net? It's a machlekes. He can't just give it away. It's a subject of dispute. Rava said, we excommunicate him until he brings the net back and stands in court for dintera. It's another ma'isa. Who garment to have a boy achvi ativna de chavri? Was a certain man who desired to show another individual straw to the goyish authority, who would take it away. He came before Rav. He said, "Do not show and do not show." He said, "You're absolutely also to showing it to the government." The man said, "I will show. I will show. I will show." And what happened was that Rav Kana was sitting before Rab, and hearing the man's disrespectful response, he dislodged the man's neck from him. He broke his neck, and he killed him. He killed him. Now, seeing Rav Kana's actions, Rav read the following pasuk about him. Your sons have fainted, they lie at the head of all the streets.
So who killed him?
Yeah. So Rav read the following passage and said, your sons have fainted, they lie at the head of the streets as an antelope in a net. Just as with regard to this antelope, once it falls into the net, so then the hunter does not have mercy upon it. So too with regards to the money of a yid, once it falls in the hand of a goyim, they do not have mercy upon him. Since goyim will seek a yid's money, will kill him in order to seize the property. So Rav Kana acted appropriately when he broke this guy's neck, as he protected the yid's property and by extension the yid himself. Rav said to Rav Kana, Kahana, have a parsei. Until now there were Persian rulers. Were not particular about bloodshed. But now there are Greeks, the Kopti Ashruchas Dam, who are particular about bloodshed. And they will say, Menadin, murder. We're going to press charges on you. Kum Salak, Israel. Go and run away to Eretz Yisrael to go learn under Rabbi Yechanan. Kabbalah, to attach to the Rabbi Yechanan Shevashnin, and accept upon yourself that you will not raise any shilas to the statement of Rabbi Yechanan for 7 years. Also, Rav Kana went there to Yisrael. Ashkel Rish Lakish, the Yosef HaKamasayim, sifted the Emil Rabbanan. Found Rish Lakish, who was sitting and reviewing Rabbi Yechanan's daily lecture in the Academy of the Chachamim. Amrlo Rish Lakish Hecha. When he finished, Rav Kana said to the students, "Where is Rish Lakish?" Amrle Amai. Why do you wish to see him? Amrlo Haikusha. Because I have difficulty in this, and I have difficulty with his review of Rabbi Yechanan's lecture. And this resolution to the question he raised. So they told this to Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish went to Rabbi Yechanan. So he went to Rabbi Yechanan and he said, Ari Olam Bava, a lion has ascended from Bavel. I am Mar Mesifta L'Machar, and the master ought to examine, basically to prepare the shir tomorrow. Rav Kana may raise shilas about what you're saying. The next day they seated Rabbi Kana in the first row for Rabbi Yechon. Rabbi Yechon stated, well, they actually didn't ask any shilas based on Rav's instructions. Rabbi Yechon stated another halacha again, and the Gornish gefrekt on Chesei Achure Shvei Dari, and they placed Rabbi Kana further back one row at the Ish B'Dora Basra until they mamish moved him 7 rows back until he seated in the last row. Rabbi Yechon said that the line you mentioned had become a fox. He's not knowledgeable. Amar Rabbi Kana said to himself, may it be Hashem's will that these 7 rows I've been moved should replace the 7 years that Rav told me to wait before raising shilas to the statement of Rabbi Yechon. Kom Akari, he stood up on his feet, and Amar Lei, and he said to Rabbi Yechon, Neheder Mar B'Reisha, Master, go back to the beginning of your shir, and repeat what you said. Amar Shmaitza. So he said, V'akshi, he said it, and Rabbi Kana raised shilas. Bava Kamah. So therefore they placed him in the first row again. Amar Shmaitza V'akshi, Rabbi Yechon again stated again the shayla, his shir, and he raised the difficulties. Rabbi Yechon was sitting upon 7 cushions so that he could be seen by all the students. And since he cannot answer Rabbi Kana's questions, he removed one cushion from under himself. In other words, to demonstrate that he was lowering himself out of respect for Rabbi Kana. He then stated another halacha, and Rabbi Kana raised another shayla. This happened repeatedly until Rabbi Yechon removed all the cushions from underneath himself until he was sitting on the ground. Rabbi Yechon was an old man and his eyebrows drooped over his eyes. He said to the students, I'm covering my eyes for me and I will see Rav Kana. So they uncovered his eyes from him with a silver eye brush. Rabbi Yechon had very, very thick eyebrows. Now once his eyes were uncovered, Yechon saw that Rav Kana's lips were split. And I thought Rav Kana was smirking at him. As a result, Rabbi Yechon was offended and Rav Kana died. As a punishment for the fact that he offended Rabbi Yechon. Next day, Rabbi Yechon said to the Chachamim, did you see this Babylonian? Rav Kana behaved in such a disrespectful manner. He said to him, his usual manner of appearance is such. It's not mocking you, it's just that's the way Hashem made him. So Rabbi Yechon went up to Rav Kana's burial cave, and he saw that he was encircled by a serpent, which had placed its tail on his mouth. In other words, completely encircling the cave and blocking the entrance. So Rabbi Yechon said to him, Achna, serpent, open your mouth and allow the teacher to enter and be by a student. Steak did not listen and did not let him come in. So he said, allow a colleague to enter near a colleague. He did not listen. So Rabbi Yechon said, allow the disciple to enter and be near the teacher, referring to Rabbi Kana as his own teacher. The snake then opened his mouth for him to allow entry. Rabbi Yechon requested, and he was Machai Mason. Right, we have the whole story of Kom Rabba, Shachtar B'Zeda, Zova Mason. Omar Lei, Rabbi Yechon said to Rav Kana, what? Well, yeah, stark is it. Omar Lei, Rabbi Yechon said to Rav Kana, you have a Yadana, the Darki, the Marachti, had I known that this master's manner of appearance, like Cholish Daiti, I would not have been offended. Hashta Leisi Mar Bahadon. Now let the master come to me to study to the Beis Medrash. Omar Lei, Matzis, the Mibi, Rachmi, the Shvilish Chibel Zinit. If you're able to request divine mercy that I will not die again, then I will go with you. If not, I am not going to go with you. Since the time decreed for his death to pass, it had passed. Yeah. Since the Gemara says, since the time decreed of his death had passed, it had passed. Rabbi Yechon then completely awakened him, and therefore he asked him about every uncertainty that he had. Bashtin and Nahal have kind of resolved each of them from. Rabbi Yechon says, the Lechein Amri. So what he says, what I said was yours, The Lachain Amri, what I said was yours. In fact, the Lachain is theirs. In other words, I thought that the Torah, Talmid Chacham and Yeshua were the most advanced. But in fact, the Talmid Chacham of Babel are most advanced, as we see in Rav Kana's knowledge. Mar now relates another incident pertaining to one who informed Goyim about the whereabouts of another Yiddish property. Hu da'achvi am taksa de Rav Abba. There was a certain individual who showed Rav Abba's silk to Goyim, and they took it. Yasu Rav Abba went up a war of Chanin Bar Papa Yisrael Nabcho. Yasu Rav Ilai Gabayu. So all these people sat together to determine whether Rav Abba was entitled to compensation by the Meiser. And Rabbi Lois there in the sand next to him. Now they thought that the Meiser is chayav to reimburse a bavo based on what we learned in the Mishnah Donas Adin. If a dayan issued a judge and made a mistake, he acquitted the one who was in fact chayav and deemed chayav the one who had been acquitted. Or he ruled that a pure item is impure, ruled that impure is pure. Also. That by doing so caused what is done is done, and the judge must pay the damage from his home, from his personal funds. Smasha, the one is chayav to pay for a financial loss that he causes, even if his involvement was only through speech. Rabbi said to them, this is what Rav said. The Mishnah is discussing a case where the judge not only issued a ruling, but actively took the money from the one whom he found chayiv on relay, and he gave it to the other person. So it cannot serve as a precedent to render the meiser chayiv. So on relay, and he said to Rabbi Abba, Zil l'gabe the Shimon and El Yakim and Rabbi Lozer ben Ptas, the Doni Dina the Garmi. Go to the Shimon and El Yakim and rule that there's liability for damage caused for indirect action. That's the difference between Garmi and Grama. Grama is a direct cause. Garmi is an indirect action. Also, like Abaye or Rabbi Abba went to them, Chayevei Mastis, and they deemed the Meiser Chayev to reimburse Rabbi Abba, as it's taught in the Mishnah. If the thug seized the field due to the robber, is chayav to provide the owner with a different field. But it was established that the Mishnah is referring to a case where an individual showed the field to thugs who later seized it. The office in the Mishnah will apply to the case as well. Who got godly cause of the kaspa? There was a certain man to whom a silver cup was deposited. Thieves came upon him in his home and he took the cup and gave it to them. Also, and Patru, he exempted him from payment. But this individual is saving himself from another's property. He should therefore be chayiv. Rather, we look at the financial status. If the shamer is a wealthy man, then the thieves came with the intent to steal his property, and was therefore chayiv to pay, as he saved himself from financial loss by handing over another's property. And if it's not a wealthy man, so the mustama adaiti the kaspa also, they presumably came with intent to steal the silver cup, and he's therefore potter from liability. Next case, there was a certain man with whom a purse containing funds collected for Pidyon Yeshuim was deposited. Thieves came upon him, and he took the purse and he gave it to them. No greater opinion than this. The man used the money to avoid himself being harmed by Ganav. Rabbi considered the money to have been used for the intended purposes. Okay, right, we'll go to the Mishnah. Who gavra the aktim asicham the mabara? There was a certain man who hastened and brought his donkey on board a ferry for kamei the sticky inishmi babari. Yeah. So there's a certain man who hastened and brought his donkey on board a ferry before other people boarded the ferry. The donkey began to move around, and was about to cause the boat. He was about to boilat bui. He was about to sink it. Also, who Gavra, certain man came and Malachli Lachana, who Gavra Shadlan Ara. He took the donkey and he pushed the donkey into the river and it drowned. Utfa also Patru. The guy saving himself with other people's money. So Haimi Koredefu. The owner of the donkey was considered a redif, as he endangered others' travels. And it's permitted to stop a redif by any means necessary, including by destroying the property. That's why that's the heter if Chas v'Shalom somebody needs a C-section. What's the heter? If it's mistaken for the baby, if for the mother, then has a din of a redif.
Aging anybody.
No, you have not a C-section. When a baby is endangering the mother, and sakanas nefashos for the mother, so then the baby is a din of a redif. You can. Okay. Rabbi Tamid Amar Rabbi redif side. That's a correction. Hello, Rabbi Tamid Amar Rabbi redif shay redif after Kamil. Oh, the shibas akelim. A case of a pursuer was chasing another in order to kill him, and then shibas akelim. Beishal Adam is potter. Why should I mischay benafshi? Because he's trying to receive the death penalty for attempting murder, and he's potter from any monetary liability incurred simultaneously. We need a shibas akelim shaledif, and the pursued individual who broke kelim of the pursuer is also potter. Pursuer's property should not be cherished more than his body, his life. So since it's permitted to kill the pursuer in order to save the intended victim, he's permitted to destroy his property for that purpose. I was going to call them chayiv. It's also rated for him to save himself from another property. And if the guard to pursuer was chasing after another pursuer in order to save the intended victim, and then he broke the kelim during the chase, Adam is part of it. It's not minadin. Ella sheim yatimimerkin. If you're not going to say that in the chad or shematzos chaverim, nobody will ever save in order to from a pursuer, in order to encourage people to attempt to save the lives of others.
When he breaks something,
right? If he damages the process of saving a life, he's exempt from money. Okay, so tomorrow